Most people spend their lives believing that their circumstances define them. They point to their past, their upbringing, their financial situation, their relationships, or their failures and quietly conclude, this is just how my life is. But this belief is one of the greatest illusions holding people back. Your circumstances do not control your destiny. Your decisions do. The single most powerful force shaping the direction of your life is not what happens to you, but the choices you make in response to what happens. Every human being faces pain, uncertainty, and challenge. No one gets a smooth, uninterrupted path. Two people can experience the exact same event and end up with completely different lives simply because they decide differently. One person sees a setback as proof that they are not good enough and chooses to retreat. Another sees the same setback as feedback and decides to grow stronger. The event is identical, the destiny is not. The difference is decision. A decision is more than a preference or a wish. It is a commitment to a course of action, even when it is uncomfortable. Many people think they have decided when in reality they have only hoped. They say, I want to be successful, or I want to be confident, but their actions remain unchanged. A real decision cuts off alternatives. It sends a clear signal to your mind and body that this is who you are now, and this is how you will act. The moment you truly decide, your behavior begins to align with that choice. Your past does not have the power to define your future unless you allow it to. The only reason past failures continue to influence people because they keep deciding to interpret them in the same way. When someone decides that a failure means I am incapable, they shrink. When someone decides that a failure means I have learned what does not work, they expand. The past itself is neutral. Meaning is created in the present through decision. Confidence is not something you wait for, it is something you decide into existence. People often believe confident individuals were born that way, but confidence is built through repeated decisions to act despite fear. Fear does not disappear before the decision, it disappears after. Every time you decide to move forward while afraid, you teach your nervous system that you are capable. Over time, this compounds an unshackable belief. Your identity is also shaped by decision. You are not who you say you are when life is easy. You are who you decide to be when it is hard. The moment you decide, I am the kind of person who does not quit, your standards rise. Your excuses lose power. You stop negotiating with your weakness. Life begins to respond differently to you because you are showing up differently. Most people underestimate how often they are deciding without realizing it. Every time you say, I can't, you are making a decision about your limits. Every time you procrastinate, you are deciding that short-term comfort is more important than long-term growth. Every time you stay silent when you should speak, you are deciding to protect approval over truth. These small, unconscious decisions compound over time and quietly shape an average or unfulfilled life. The good news is that the same mechanism that creates limitation can create freedom. One strong decision can redirect the course of your life. When you decide that something is no longer acceptable, your brain immediately begins to look for solutions. When you decide that giving up is not an option, creativity increases. When you decide that growth is non-negotiable, discipline becomes easier. Decisions simplify life because they remove internal conflict. People often wait for motivation to appear before they act, but motivation follows decision, not the other way around. Once you decide, energy shows up. Resources appear, support emerges in unexpected ways. This is not luck or magic, it is focus. Your mind becomes aligned toward a goal, and you begin to notice opportunities that were always there, but previously invisible. Taking responsibility is one of the most empowering decisions a person can make. Responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It means recognizing that you always have power over your response. The moment you decide, I am responsible for the direction of my life, you reclaim control. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a creator of outcomes. Your destiny is not written in a single dramatic moment, but in thousands of small decisions repeated daily. What you decide to focus on each morning, how you decide to speak to yourself, whether you decide to take action or delay it, whether you decide to learn or to complain. These choices seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they shape your health, your relationships, your finances, and your sense of meaning. Ultimately, the quality of your life is the quality of your decisions. If you want a different future, you do not need a different past, different parents, or different luck. You need a higher level of decision. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Decide what you will stand for. Decide who you are becoming. When your decisions change, your actions change. When your actions change, your habits change. When your habits change, your destiny changes. Human behavior is not random, and it is not as complicated as it often appears. At the core of almost every decision a person makes are two powerful forces: the desire to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. These forces quietly guide actions, shape habits, and influence life outcomes, whether people are aware of them or not. From the smallest daily choices to the biggest life-changing decisions, pain and pleasure act as the invisible drivers behind human motivation. People like to believe they are logical and rational, but most behavior is emotional first and logical second. The brain is wired to move away from pain because pain signals danger, and survival depends on avoiding it. At the same time, the brain is wired to seek pleasure because pleasure signals reward, comfort, and safety. Every action is an attempt to either move away from something that feels painful or move towards something that feels pleasurable. Even when a choice seems irrational from the outside, it makes sense when viewed through this lens. Procrastination is a clear example of how pain and pleasure control behavior. When someone delays an important task, it is not because they are lazy or incapable. It is because their brain associates immediate pain with starting the task, such as discomfort, effort, or fear of failure. At the same time, the brain associates immediate pleasure with avoiding the task, such as comfort, distraction, or relief. Even though completing the task may bring long-term pleasure, the brain prioritizes short-term emotional relief. The behavior is driven by pain avoidance, not by lack of ability. The same pattern appears in unhealthy habits. People know that overeating, smoking, or staying inactive can cause long-term harm, yet they continue. This is not because they do not understand the consequences, but because the immediate pleasure feels stronger than the distant pain. The human mind is highly sensitive to what feels good or bad now. Unless the emotional associations change, behavior remains the same, regardless of logic or knowledge. Pain and pleasure also explain why people stay in situations they claim to hate. Someone may complain about their job, their relationship, or their lifestyle, yet do nothing to change it. On the surface, this looks like weakness or lack of courage. In reality, the pain of change feels greater than the pain of staying the same. The uncertainty, fear of the unknown, and risk of failure create more emotional discomfort than the familiar dissatisfaction they already know. As long as staying feels safer than leaving, behavior will not change. Lasting change happens when the emotional balance shifts. When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, people act. This is why many people only change after a crisis, such as a health scare, a financial loss, or a broken relationship. The emotional pain becomes intense enough to force action. At the same time, the pleasure of a better future becomes clearer and more compelling. Motivation rises naturally when these associations are strong. Understanding this principle gives you power over your own behavior. If you want to change what you do, you must change what you associate with pain and pleasure. If you associate discipline with suffering and comfort with happiness, you will struggle. If you associate growth with pride and stagnation with regret, your behavior will shift. The mind follows emotion and emotion follows meaning. By consciously changing the meaning you attach to actions, you can reprogram your motivation. This principle also explains why environment and influence matter so much. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, and the standards you observe shape your emotional associations. If your environment rewards laziness and excuses, comfort feels pleasurable. If your environment celebrates effort and growth, action begins to feel rewarding. Human beings are highly responsive to emotional cues, and those cues are constantly being reinforced by surroundings. Pain and pleasure do not only control negative behaviors, they also drive excellence. High achievers are not immune to discomfort. They simply associate more pain with staying average than with pushing themselves. They attach pleasure to discipline, progress, and improvement. What others see as sacrifice, they experience as purpose. This is not because they are born different, but because they have trained their emotional responses over time. Even self-belief is influenced by pain and pleasure. When someone avoids trying, it is often to avoid the pain of possible failure or judgment. When someone takes bold action, it is often because the pleasure of growth, pride, or contribution outweighs that fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more emotionally. At the deepest level, understanding pain and pleasure reveals that people are always doing what they believe will meet their emotional needs. If you want to change your life, you must stop fighting behavior and start reshaping motivation. When you learn to link pain to what is holding you back and pleasure to what moves you forward, your actions begin to change naturally. Behavior follows emotion, and emotion follows the associations you choose to build. Most people believe that change requires time, better circumstances, or a shift in external conditions. In reality, change can happen in an instant when you change your state. Your state is the combination of your emotions, focus, and physiology in any given moment. When your state changes, your perception changes, and when your perception changes, your behavior follows. This is why the same person can feel confident and powerful one moment and overwhelmed the next without anything external changing. The fastest way to change your state is through your body. Your posture, breathing, and movement send immediate signals to your brain about how you are feeling. When you slump your shoulders, breathe shallowly, and move slowly, your brain interprets this as weakness or defeat. When you stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with purpose, your brain begins to produce different chemicals associated with strength and confidence. This is not positive thinking, it is biology. By changing how you use your body, you can interrupt negative emotional patterns almost instantly. Focus is the second key element of state. Whatever you focus on, you begin to feel. If you focus on what you fear, you feel anxious. If you focus on what you lack, you feel frustrated. If you focus on what you can control and what you are grateful for, your emotional state shifts. Most people allow their focus to be controlled by their problems, but focus is a choice. The moment you redirect your attention, you redirect your emotional experience. Breathing acts as a bridge between the body and the mind. Slow, deep breathing signals safety to the nervous system, while shallow, rapid breathing signals stress. By consciously changing your breathing, you can calm your emotions or energize yourself within minutes. This is why athletes, performers, and leaders use breathing techniques before important moments. They are not waiting to feel ready, they are changing their state first. Emotions do not happen to you, they are generated by the patterns you repeat. When you repeatedly enter the same physical and mental patterns, you get the same emotional results. Changing your state breaks those patterns. It gives you space to respond instead of react. In that space, you regain control. Once you understand how to change your state, you stop feeling powerless. You realize that confidence, clarity, and energy are not random gifts, but skills you can access on demand. Life will still present challenges, but you will no longer be trapped by them emotionally. By mastering your state, you begin to master your life. One moment at a time. Many people believe that success is driven mainly by intelligence, talent, or knowledge, but these factors alone rarely produce results. What truly fuels success is emotion. Emotion is the force that turns ideas into action and intention into movement. You can know exactly what to do, have a clear plan, and understand every step required, yet still fail to act if there is no emotional drive behind it. Emotion is the energy that pushes people to persist, to take risks, and to keep going when things become difficult. Knowledge without emotion remains passive. It sits in the mind but never reaches behavior. This is why so many people read books, watch videos, and attend seminars yet see little change in their lives. They collect information but do not feel compelled to act on it. Emotion creates urgency. It gives meaning to goals and transforms them from abstract ideas into personal missions. When something matters emotionally, effort no longer feels forced, it feels necessary. Every major achievement in human history is powered by strong emotion. Passion drives creativity, hunger drives effort, and belief drives resilience. Even emotions that are often labeled as negative, such as anger or frustration, can become powerful fuel when directed correctly. The difference between destructive and constructive emotion lies in focus. When emotion is tied to a clear purpose, it becomes a source of strength rather than chaos. Emotion also determines how long you stay committed. Discipline alone can get you started, but emotion keeps you going. When progress slows or obstacles appear, logic may tell you that quitting makes sense. Emotion is what reminds you why you started. It reconnects you to your deeper reasons and gives you the strength to endure discomfort. People who achieve long-term success are not those who never struggle, but those who feel a strong emotional connection to their goals. Motivation is not something that randomly appears. It is something you generate by engaging your emotions. When you vividly imagine the benefits of success, you create excitement and hope. When you clearly feel the cost of failure, you create urgency and determination. The mind responds to emotional intensity, not to vague ideas. The stronger the emotional connection, the stronger the action. Emotion also influences how others respond to you. People are drawn to energy, conviction, and authenticity. When you speak or act with genuine emotion, others feel it. This is why leaders who inspire emotion create loyalty and momentum, while those who rely only on logic struggle to influence. Emotion is contagious, and when channeled positively, it multiplies impact. Ultimately, success is not just about what you know or what you plan, it is about what you feel strongly enough to act on. When emotion fuels your actions, persistence becomes natural, effort becomes meaningful, and challenges become part of the journey rather than reasons to stop. What you focus on determines how you feel, and how you feel determines how you act. The human mind is constantly filtering reality, choosing what to pay attention to and what to ignore. This focus happens so automatically that most people are unaware of it, yet it shapes their emotional experience every moment. When you focus on problems, you feel overwhelmed. When you focus on losses, you feel discouraged. When you focus on possibilities, you feel energized. The external world may remain the same, but your inner experience changes entirely based on where your attention goes. Focus gives meaning to events. A challenge can feel like a threat or an opportunity depending on what you focus on. If you focus on what could go wrong, fear grows. If you focus on what you can learn, curiosity and confidence rise. This is why two people in the same situation can experience completely different emotions. One feels trapped and powerless, while the other feels motivated and capable. The difference is not the situation, but the focus they choose. Emotions do not appear without cause. They are responses to what the mind emphasizes. When your attention is locked on scarcity, mistakes, or uncertainty, your nervous system reacts with stress. When your attention shifts to progress, strengths, or gratitude, your body responds with calm and optimism. Focus acts like a lens, magnifying whatever it is directed toward. The more you focus on something, the more real and intense it feels. Most people allow their focus to be controlled by habit, environment, and emotion. Negative news, past failures, and daily frustrations easily capture attention, pulling emotions downward. Over time, this creates a pattern where stress and dissatisfaction feel normal. However, focus is a skill that can be trained. The moment you consciously redirect your attention, you interrupt emotional patterns that no longer serve you. Focus does not mean ignoring reality or pretending problems do not exist. It means choosing what deserves your mental energy. When you focus on solutions instead of complaints, your mind becomes more creative. When you focus on actions instead of excuses, momentum builds. Even in difficult situations, focusing on what you can control restores a sense of power and stability. Gratitude is one of the most effective ways to shift focus. When you deliberately focus on what is working, what you have learned, or what you appreciate, your emotional state improves. This does not remove challenges, but it changes how you experience them. A grateful focus creates resilience and perspective, making setbacks easier to handle. Ultimately, focus is the steering wheel of your emotional life. You may not control every event, but you always control where your attention rests. By learning to guide your focus intentionally, you gain the ability to regulate your emotions, influence your actions, and shape the quality of your daily experience. What you focus on has a profound impact on how you experience life. Every thought, feeling, and action is influenced by where your attention is directed. Your mind is constantly filtering reality, highlighting certain elements while ignoring others. This process happens automatically and subconsciously, yet it determines how you perceive the world, how you respond to situations, and ultimately how your life unfolds. If you focus on scarcity, limitations, and problems, your emotional state becomes dominated by fear, anxiety, or frustration. If you focus on possibilities, strengths, and solutions, your emotions shift toward optimism, confidence, and motivation. The same circumstances can feel completely different depending on where your attention rests. Focus acts like a lens, magnifying whatever it rests upon. This is why two people can face the same challenge and respond in radically different ways. One person may see a job loss as a devastating failure, while another sees it as an opportunity to explore new possibilities. The external reality is identical, but the internal experience diverges entirely because of focus. It is not the events themselves that determine how you feel, it is the meaning you assign to them through your attention. The stories you tell yourself and the details you dwell on become the reality you experience. Emotions are directly tied to focus. Stress, worry, and fear are amplified when your attention is repeatedly drawn to what is wrong, what is missing, or what could go wrong. Conversely, gratitude, hope, and excitement grow when your attention is directed toward what is working, what you have, and what is possible. People often believe that emotions happen to them automatically, but in reality, Your emotional state is largely created by what you consistently choose to focus on. By consciously choosing focus, you can regulate your emotional experience and gain control over how you respond to life. Most people allow their focus to be hijacked by external distractions or habitual thought patterns. Negative news, social comparisons, past regrets, and daily frustrations can dominate attention without conscious choice. Over time, this creates an emotional default state dominated by worry, dissatisfaction, and stress. The mind naturally magnifies what it perceives as important, so repeated attention to negativity trains the brain to interpret life through a lens of limitation. Changing this requires awareness and practice, but it is entirely possible to shift focus intentionally and rewire emotional patterns. Focus also shapes behavior and results. What you dwell on influences what you notice, the opportunities you see, and the actions you take. If your attention is constantly on problems or excuses, you overlook solutions and fail to act. If your attention is directed toward possibilities and action, you begin to notice opportunities that were previously invisible. This is why high performers emphasize the importance of mental focus. It not only shapes perception, but also guides decisions and drives results. Action follows attention, and sustained focus on the right things produces consistent progress. Gratitude is one of the most effective ways to direct focus positively. By intentionally focusing on what is going well, what you have learned, or what you appreciate, you shift your emotional state and create momentum. This does not remove challenges or eliminate difficulties, but it changes your perception of them. When you focus on solutions instead of obstacles, your mind becomes more creative. When you focus on what is controllable rather than what is beyond your control, your energy is directed toward action rather than frustration. The quality of your focus directly influences the quality of your life. Focus also determines resilience. When setbacks occur, attention can either magnify pain or reveal opportunity. Dwelling on failure intensifies feelings of defeat and can lead to inaction. Shifting focus to lessons learned, growth opportunities, and next steps generates hope and motivation. This ability to direct focus is what allows some people to remain calm and productive under pressure, while others become overwhelmed. Focus is a skill that can be trained, practiced, and strengthened, and doing so transforms not only emotions, but behavior and outcomes. At a deeper level, understanding the power of focus reveals that life is not just what happens to you, it is what you attend to. You may not control every event, but you always control where your attention rests. Intentional focus amplifies what matters, diminishes what is not, and gives you the ability to create meaning, emotion, and momentum. By learning to choose your focus consciously, you gain control over your emotional state, your actions, and the trajectory of your life. What you consistently pay attention to becomes your reality, and mastering focus is the key to mastering your life. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions that influence human behavior. It can prevent people from taking risks, pursuing opportunities, or stepping into the life they desire. Yet fear is not inherently negative. It is simply a signal, a natural response that alerts you to uncertainty or potential danger. The difference between those who achieve extraordinary success and those who remain stuck is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Courage is not the elimination of fear, but the conscious choice to move forward even when fear is present. Understanding this principle is critical because fear, when recognized and managed properly, becomes one of the greatest motivators in life. Most people fail to achieve their goals because they allow fear to dictate their decisions. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and even fear of success can all hold a person back. The human mind naturally exaggerates potential threats, often imagining worst-case scenarios that rarely materialize. This mental exaggeration creates a false sense of danger, convincing people to remain in their comfort zones. However, comfort zones are restrictive by nature. They offer safety in the short term, but prevent growth in the long term. Every step toward your goals requires confronting some form of fear because growth inherently involves uncertainty. Massive action is the antidote to fear. Fear exists primarily in the mind, and the mind reacts to an action by amplifying worry and doubt. When a person takes decisive action, even small steps at first, the mind begins to recognize progress and fear diminishes. Action breaks the illusion that fear is an insurmountable barrier. The more consistent the action, the weaker fear becomes until courage and confidence replace hesitation. This is why people who take bold steps, even imperfectly, often achieve far more than those who wait for fear to disappear. Fear also provides valuable information. It signals that the action you are considering is meaningful and that it has the potential to produce significant results. Fear often accompanies opportunities for growth because it challenges you to stretch beyond familiar patterns. When approached consciously, fear can act as a compass, guiding you toward actions that matter most. Avoiding fear only leads to stagnation, while confronting fear strategically leads to expansion, learning, and increased resilience. Understanding the biology of fear is equally important. When faced with a perceived threat, the body releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. These hormones prepare you for immediate action, sharpening focus and energy. However, if the fear is not confronted through action, these chemicals can create anxiety, tension, and indecision. By responding to fear with decisive action, you channel the physiological response into productivity rather than letting it paralyze you. Fear transforms from a limiting force into a driving force for achievement. Fear is also a test of identity. Each time you choose courage over comfort, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, resilient, and resourceful. Repeated decisions to act in spite of fear strengthen your self-image and expand the boundaries of what you believe is possible. Over time, fear loses its power not because it disappears, but because your identity grows strong enough to face it. Ultimately, fear disappears when massive action becomes your habit. It is never eliminated completely, nor should it be. Fear is a natural and necessary signal, but action transforms its energy into momentum. Every success, every breakthrough, and every personal transformation begins with a decision to act despite fear. Those who master fear understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the consistent choice to move forward. By taking decisive action, you convert fear from a paralyzing obstacle into one of the greatest drivers of growth, success, and personal empowerment. Success is rarely accidental. It is not a product of luck, random chance, or mere talent alone. Instead, success leaves clues, patterns, and lessons that anyone willing to observe and learn can apply. These clues are evident in the behaviors, strategies, habits, and mindset of people who consistently achieve their goals. Understanding and following these patterns is one of the fastest ways to accelerate personal and professional growth. The concept is simple. If you want to achieve results, study those who have already achieved what you desire and model their actions, decisions, and attitudes. One of the most powerful aspects of observing success is that it reveals universal principles. While every industry and every person's journey is unique in some ways, the underlying elements that lead to success remain remarkably consistent. High achievers often share traits such as resilience, focus, disciplined habits, emotional intelligence, and the ability to learn from failure. By identifying these traits, you can replicate them in your own life. The key is not to copy superficially, but to understand the underlying mechanisms and apply them to your circumstances. Success also leaves clues in the way people structure their time and energy. High performers prioritize activities that yield the highest returns. They consistently invest time in skill development, learning, and building relationships while minimizing time spent on distractions or activities with low impact. If you observe carefully, you will notice that they do not wait for the perfect moment. They act decisively within the resources available. By studying how they allocate time and effort, you can adopt similar strategies in your own life, creating a framework that maximizes results. Another clue is how successful individuals manage their mindset and emotions. One common characteristic is their ability to maintain focus and resilience despite setbacks. They understand that challenges are inevitable, and instead of being paralyzed by fear or frustration, they use obstacles as feedback. They ask questions like, what can I learn from this? Or how can I adjust my approach? Emotional control is a significant differentiator between those who quit and those who continue. By observing how successful people respond to adversity, you can develop the emotional patterns that lead to persistence and eventual achievement. Success also leaves clues in the networks and relationships that high achievers cultivate. They surround themselves with people who inspire, challenge, and support them. These networks provide accountability, new ideas, and access to resources that would be difficult to obtain alone. By noticing the kinds of relationships that drive success, you can intentionally build your own network with people who elevate your standards and push you toward growth. Modeling success requires more than passive observation. It demands action. The goal is to translate insight into behavior. For example, if a successful entrepreneur consistently invests in personal development, you can commit to learning new skills, attending seminars, or reading strategically selected books. If a top athlete maintains a strict training schedule, you can adopt a disciplined routine in your own field. Observing and emulating behavior creates a direct pathway to results, bypassing much of the trial and error that others experience. One critical clue left by successful people is the way they handle failure. They rarely view failure as final. Instead, they see it as information. Each failure provides data on what works and what does not, and each misstep becomes an opportunity to adjust strategies and improve. This mindset of learning over judgment is a hallmark of long-term achievement. By adopting a similar perspective, you can turn setbacks into stepping stones rather than roadblocks. Success also leaves clues in the habits and routines that define daily life. High achievers often have structured mornings, clear priorities, and rituals that maintain energy and focus. They understand the compounding effect of consistent, small actions repeated over time. Observing these routines reveals that success is not about occasional bursts of effort, but sustained, disciplined habits that accumulate into significant outcomes. In addition to habits, success leaves clues in the values and principles that guide decision-making. High performers make choices aligned with long-term goals rather than short-term comfort. They understand the trade-offs necessary for achievement and act consistently with their priorities. By studying the values that drive their decisions, you can clarify your own principles and ensure that your actions consistently support your objectives. Finally, success leaves clues in the stories people tell about themselves. Those who achieve consistently think in terms of possibilities rather than limitations. They identify opportunities where others see obstacles, and they maintain a mindset of growth and expansion. By observing the language, self-talk, and internal narratives of successful individuals, you can begin to adopt similar mental frameworks that shape your actions and results. In conclusion, success is not a mystery reserved for a select few. It is deliberate, observable, and replicable. It leaves clear clues in behaviors, habits, emotional management, relationships, routines, values, and mindset. By studying these clues, modeling the patterns, and translating observation into action, anyone can accelerate their journey toward achievement. The key is consistency and commitment, repeatedly applying what you learn, adjusting when necessary, and staying focused on long-term growth. Success is available to anyone willing to notice the signs, follow the paths already laid by others, and commit to the disciplined application of proven principles. Identity is one of the most powerful forces that shape human behavior, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people spend their lives focusing on what they want to achieve, success, wealth, happiness, or recognition, without realizing that the results they get are largely determined by the kind of person they believe themselves to be. Identity is the lens through which we interpret the world, the internal definition we carry about who we are, and it governs the decisions we make, the habits we form, and the goals we pursue. Your results are a reflection of your identity because you consistently act in ways that are congruent with how you see yourself. Until your identity shifts, your actions, behaviors, and outcomes are limited to what your current self-concept allows. Every human being acts in alignment with their beliefs about themselves. For example, someone who believes they are not athletic will rarely commit to regular exercise, even if they know it would improve their health. Someone who identifies as not good with money will avoid budgeting, investing, or taking steps to grow financially, often justifying it with excuses. On the other hand, when a person begins to see themselves as capable, disciplined, or resilient, their behaviors naturally begin to reflect those qualities. Identity is not merely about who you want to be, it is about who you believe you already are at your core. Changing results without changing identity is often temporary. Many people attempt to improve their lives through external techniques alone, reading books, following strategies, or setting goals, but without addressing the underlying identity, these changes tend to fade over time. For instance, someone might go on a strict diet and lose weight, but if they still see themselves as someone who cannot control food, old habits eventually return. Permanent change requires the development of a new self-concept, one that aligns with the results you desire. Identity is reinforced by repetition. Small actions, when repeated consistently, strengthen the beliefs you have about yourself. Each time you follow through on a commitment, act in alignment with your values, or achieve a small success, it sends a signal to your mind, this is who I am. Over time, these repeated behaviors solidify into habits, and habits in turn reinforce identity. This creates a feedback loop in which your identity drives behavior, behavior strengthens identity, and identity continues to shape behavior, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. The process of changing identity begins with decisions. Every decision is a statement about who you are, choosing to take responsibility rather than blame, to persist rather than quit, and to act in alignment with your goals rather than delay is a direct way to build a new identity. While motivation can fluctuate and strategies can fail, decisions send a clear signal to the subconscious mind. Decisions shape the story you tell yourself, and the story you tell yourself defines who you believe you are. Language and self-talk play a central role in shaping identity. The words you use to describe yourself influence the beliefs you hold. When you repeatedly say, "I'm not creative," or "I'm not disciplined," your mind internalizes those statements as truth. Conversely, statements like "I am capable of learning and improving," or "I am someone who follows through on commitments" reinforce positive identity. Over time, this internal dialogue dictates behavior. By consciously choosing empowering language, you can reprogram how you see yourself and consequently how you act. Environment is another key factor in identity formation. The people you spend time with, the media you consume, and the standards you observe all reinforce certain beliefs about yourself. If you surround yourself with individuals who are driven, disciplined, and growth-oriented, you are more likely to adopt similar identities. Conversely, environments that normalize mediocrity, negativity, or complacency reinforce limiting beliefs. Identity is social as well as internal. It is continuously shaped by the signals you receive from the world around you. Identity also dictates what you consider possible. People achieve goals that align with their self-image because their actions naturally reflect what they believe they can do. Someone who identifies as a successful entrepreneur will take risks, make decisions, and persist in ways that a person who sees themselves as not business-minded will not. Your identity sets boundaries for what you attempt and what you accept. Shifting your identity expands what you consider achievable and opens the door to results that were previously unimaginable. Changing identity requires deliberate practice. It is not a one-time decision, but a series of repeated actions reinforced by self-reflection and conscious effort, visualization, affirmation, and consistent practice of behaviors aligned with the desired identity helps solidify new beliefs. Each action that supports the new identity strengthens neural pathways in the brain, making the new identity increasingly automatic over time. Eventually, acting in alignment with your new identity becomes effortless because it is consistent with who you now believe yourself to be. Failure is also part of the identity building process. People often resist change because they fear mistakes will define them. However, successful identity change comes from understanding that failure does not define you. It is simply feedback. Those committed to growth interpret failure as data, adjusting behaviors and refining self-beliefs. In this way, setbacks are integrated into the identity transformation process rather than seen as contradictions to the new self concept. Ultimately, your identity is the foundation upon which all results are built. You cannot permanently achieve goals, build habits, or maintain success without first defining the kind of person you must become. Every decision, every action, every piece of self-talk reinforces or undermines your identity. By consciously shaping who you believe yourself to be, you create a natural alignment between your thoughts, actions, and desired outcomes. The stronger and clearer your identity, the more consistent and inevitable your results become. Identity is the unseen engine that drives behavior, molds habits, and ultimately determines the trajectory of your life. By mastering your identity, you master your destiny. Human beings have an incredible capacity for strength, resilience, and growth, yet far too often, people underestimate their own potential. Most of us go through life setting limits based on past failures, societal expectations, or self-doubt, never realizing how much untapped power exists within. The idea that you are stronger than you think is not just a motivational statement, it is a truth backed by both psychology and life experience. Your mind and body possess resources far beyond what you consciously acknowledge, and accessing them often requires pushing past comfort, fear, and perceived limitations. The first way we underestimate our strength is by confusing temporary feelings with permanent reality. When faced with difficulty, fear, or exhaustion, it is natural to feel weak or incapable. These sensations are often interpreted as signs that we cannot continue, when in fact they are simply signals that the challenge is stretching us beyond our current comfort zone. The human mind is wired to prioritize safety, so discomfort triggers resistance. However, real strength is revealed when you act despite these temporary sensations. Each time you move forward under pressure, your capacity grows and your perception of your limits expands. Mental strength is often underestimated because we rely too heavily on external validation and visible evidence of capability. We assume that if we cannot see immediate results, we must be incapable. Yet strength is not always measurable by instant success. It is often built through repeated effort, persistence, and the ability to endure hardship. Every challenge you face, every moment you resist giving up, strengthens your mental resilience. Over time, these experiences accumulate, creating a foundation of inner strength that exceeds what you initially imagined. Physical endurance also illustrates this principle. Athletes routinely achieve feats that seem impossible to outsiders, yet these achievements are often built incrementally. The body adapts to consistent stress, and the limits that once felt insurmountable are eventually surpassed. Similarly, your emotional and mental resilience operates on the same principle. Repeated exposure to manageable challenges gradually increases your capacity to handle more significant ones. This means that what feels impossible today can become achievable tomorrow if you continue to push forward. Another reason we underestimate our strength is because of the stories we tell ourselves. Many people internalize beliefs such as, I am not capable, I'm not enough, I can't handle this. These self-limiting beliefs shape behavior, often creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yet strength grows when you challenge these narratives. Every time you act in contradiction to a limiting belief, you reinforce the truth that you are capable of far more than you initially assumed. Strength is as much about mindset as it is about skill or talent. Crisis moments reveal hidden reservoirs of strength. Throughout history, people have faced extreme challenges, natural disasters, life-threatening situations, personal loss, and discovered capabilities they never knew existed. Ordinary individuals have performed extraordinary feats under pressure, lifting heavy objects to save someone, enduring extreme conditions, or making split-second decisions that save lives. These examples demonstrate that strength is not always evident until circumstances demand it. Often, we have no idea how strong we are until we are tested. Strength is also reinforced by purpose and meaning. People who connect their actions to a cause greater than themselves unlock levels of determination that surpass ordinary limits. When the stakes feel personal or meaningful, the mind and body summon energy and courage that would otherwise remain dormant. Motivation fueled by purpose can help individuals endure pain, overcome obstacles, and persist when logic alone would suggest giving up. Purpose acts as a catalyst that amplifies strength beyond perceived boundaries. Facing fear is another critical way to discover inner strength. Fear often convinces us that we are weaker than we actually are, creating barriers that prevent action. Yet by confronting fear, even incrementally, people realize that their actual capability exceeds their perception. Courage is built not by the absence of fear, but by action despite it. Each step taken in the face of fear reinforces self-belief and gradually dismantles the mental barriers that limit potential. Resilience and adaptability are additional components of strength that are frequently underestimated. Life is unpredictable and challenges rarely unfold as planned. Those who succeed are not necessarily those with the most talent or resources, but those who adapt to circumstances, learn from failure, and persist. Every setback overcome adds to the reservoir of inner strength, creating a compounding effect that increases confidence and capability over time. Support systems amplify strength. While inner resilience is critical, humans are inherently social beings, and connection with others can enhance perceived and actual capacity. Encouragement, accountability, and shared experience enable people to access reserves of energy and determination that might otherwise remain untapped. Recognizing that asking for help or collaborating with others does not diminish strength, but reinforces it is essential in understanding the full spectrum of human capability. Ultimately, the principle that you are stronger than you think is both empowering and practical. Strength exists in many forms: mental, emotional, physical, and social, and it grows through deliberate action, persistence, and facing discomfort. Every challenge presents an opportunity to uncover new capabilities, and every act of courage expands the boundaries of what is possible. Life often tests us to reveal these hidden strengths, and the more we confront challenges consciously, the more we realize that our potential is far greater than we imagined. Recognizing your inner strength transforms how you approach goals, adversity, and personal growth. It changes the way you view obstacles, no longer as insurmountable barriers, but as opportunities to access reserves of power and resilience. Strength is not a finite resource, it is cumulative, and the more you exercise it, the more you discover within yourself. By embracing this truth, you gain confidence, persistence, and the courage to pursue challenges that once seemed impossible, ultimately unlocking levels of achievement and personal growth beyond what you believed possible. You are stronger than you think because your potential is not fixed. It is revealed through action, tested through adversity, and expanded by choice. Every step you take, every challenge you confront, and every fear you face uncovers reserves of power that redefine what is possible in your life. Recognizing this strength is the first step toward living fully, acting decisively, and achieving goals that once seemed beyond reach. Strength is already within you. It is waiting to be discovered.